VIRIMA Technologies is a IT infrastructure organization, IT infrastructure support organization rather. We do address various subject areas such as IT service management, IT asset management, discovery, service mapping. There's various things that are applicable to many organizations. So any company, small, medium, large enterprises that have IT infrastructure, that manage IT infrastructure, could leverage VIRIMA application. So having said that, let me take you into the presentation and show you, what VIRIMA does in detail and how we are leveraging Autonomic. By the way, as Susie has already introduced me, my name is SreeRam Royyala. For the folks who have joined just now, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from, depending on wherever you're joining from. So let's continue with the presentation. VIRIMA Technologies, as I mentioned, we address IT infrastructure management subject areas. So that involves discovery, ITSM, and IT asset management. And in the discovery, basically, there are various things. What I have outlined here are very few and most applicable things, but typically when you take discovery, if you're talking about cloud, there are numerous infrastructure items in the cloud, starting with servers and storage and microservices and all the serverless architecture and everything. When you look at the sprawl that is happening in the industry nowadays, it is tremendous. So VIRIMA is very optimally positioned to discover all those cloud resources and basically inventory them and manage them, put them in one place, show all the metrics in one under one pane of glass, and lets you have a complete idea over your infrastructure footprint. Along with that, we do address IT service management. Many people are familiar with CMDB, that is Configuration Management Database. That is nothing but a system of record, a pristine system of record for the organizations that would tell literally all about your infrastructure items, IT infrastructure in general. And once the CMDB is prepared, once it is ready, you can lay over the other processes, IT service management processes on top of it, such as incident management, problem change, and all that. Along with that, VIRIMA addresses IT asset management space, where we have hardware asset management, software asset management, vendor procurement, contract, things like that. So that is what VIRIMA does. And let me show you how we do it so that you can appreciate the complexity of the VIRIMA architecture. And when I talk about how we get to test out this complex architecture, then you would appreciate where Autonomic comes into picture. Okay, so we are primarily cloud based application. We do have some on-prem deployments as well, and there is one discovery application that sits on-prem in the customer's environment. So for the hundreds of customers, we have those hundreds of discovery applications. And most importantly, each customer can have multiple discovery applications depending on their network topology, network permissions, and all that. So that increases the complexity of having thousands of discovery applications that are not in your server, that are not sitting with you, that are sitting elsewhere. So we will have to contact them, we'll have to test them out, we'll have to see how they are working and all that. So that is where the complexity lies. And then after the discovery, what we do is mainly the service mapping. Service mapping is what tells you in a beautiful visualization how your infrastructure components are connected to each other. Such as, for example, when you're looking at a web application, the web application could be running on a web server, and That web server could be connected to an application server. That application server could be connected to a database server, and that is in turn connected to all ETL jobs, all the servers that carry out ETL jobs and reporting and other storage, other databases, etc., etc. So Virima has this unique capability to map out that environment completely for you. So we automatically map out all these connections, and we'll give you these beautiful visualizations where anybody without any technology background or any technical knowledge can take a look at it and make out how a specific application is laid out in the environment. Okay. And not only that, that is for the service. Whatever I have just outlined is for the service. And this is for the regular infrastructure itself. For example, if you're in a VMware environment, how everybody thinks VMware is, it is just the ESXi host and then the virtual machines on top of it. But many people do not know what goes on behind the scenes. So that is what we will open up. We will kind of open up that all that infrastructure layers and put them right in front of you so that everybody will appreciate how much is it involved to really support a complex infrastructure like an enterprise IT environment. Okay. After that, what kind of customers that Virima would usually serve? Basically, we do serve all the small and medium businesses and enterprises who are looking for managing their IT infrastructure, whether it is on premise or in the cloud. And why do they need Virima? Because if you remember, nowadays the sprawl, the infrastructure sprawl, and some people are calling it shadow IT because it is very easy to spin up a VMware virtual machine and forget it completely. And there are lot means hundreds and hundreds of VMs like that that were spun up and forgotten. And now with the cloud, that is even easier. At least for the VMware, you need to go to vCenter and you need to do all that. But for cloud, all you need is a web browser and a login. You can spin up as many as you want, and you can forget about the fact that you spun up some items and they're still running their costing organizations money. So whenever you have such infrastructure sprawl or shadow IT, you need Virima to really dig deeper and tell you about it and show you that visualization saying where all these infrastructure items are lying. And we have partnerships. These are only some of the partnerships that we have outlined here. We have partnerships with various other companies. For example, Ivanti is a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader along with ServiceNow and BMC. So we are OEM partners with Ivanti, and that puts us into that Magic Quadrant along with Ivanti because they use our technology wherever they need discovery and service mapping. Okay. And after that, basically, our organization is ever growing because the need for service mapping and infrastructure discovery is there in the industry, and we keep adding customers, we keep adding new infrastructure deals everywhere. So with that growth story come challenges because every new customer that we bring in have their own unique set of infrastructure items, their own unique set of requirements. So how do we scale to support so many customers simultaneously and also to bring in new functionality that is required for the customers? So that is our challenge. It's like a growing pain. It's good to have problem, but yes, nonetheless, it is a challenge that we need to face every day. And that challenge includes growing the product. And with the growing product comes obviously the set of bugs that people would introduce knowingly or unknowingly. or maybe they want to take some shortcuts and all that. And that is where our automated testing and a lot of our testing frameworks come into picture. We were using other testing frameworks like Selenium before, but as you know, there was the other challenges that come with those tools, because from my level, when you're looking at a CIO, CTO level, how do we really capture the metrics? How do we really look at the progress of the testing and progress of the feature rollout itself? So that is where autonomic comes into picture. Okay, we are using autonomic very deeply, and all of our testers, they use autonomic in day-to-day basis. And especially what it helped us is in terms of testing efficiency. Earlier, whatever used to take 1 day now takes maybe 1 hour or less. So not only that, because you might have heard so much about autonomic and the source tools so far, we are also using it for non-testing aspects. That is, when we have prepared these test cases, when we have prepared these test suites and all these projects and everything, after that, what is happening is we are leaving a trail of all the, say, screenshots, all the steps required, all the knowledge that is required to carry out a task. For example, we are carrying out a discovery process on a particular client. So what do we do? So we are using that material for number one, documentation, and number two, training our new employees, because as I said earlier, our growth story is pretty impressive. So we keep recruiting people day in and day out, literally. So we cannot always have somebody train them on a day-to-day basis. So we are using this documentation and we are using this material for proper training, because that is helping us tremendously, and most importantly, it is saving us a lot of time. And there is also a trial that, okay, who is looking at this material and who is not. So, and along with that, I already mentioned about how executive level dashboards and metrics would help us in terms of identifying how the progress is. So our progress lies in many areas. Like, for example, how do we meet our business goals? Our business goals are like meeting new customer requirements. That means, as I said earlier, every new customer comes with their own set of challenges, their own set of new infrastructure. So how do we meet that? And number two is prospects. We are bringing in customers every day, and they are asking, can it do this? Can it do that? How do we do this? How do we demo this? So, and next one is the feature enhancement that we want to do. And next one is the product roadmap, because obviously any product that we have in the market should grow. It needs to add new functionality and that. So we are using autonomic in a very unique way, differently, if you will, for all these different aspects. For example, for meeting new customer requirements, the area of the focus is product stability. To add a small new feature, we should not introduce a new bug, or we should not introduce a new problem. Whereas when we are looking at the prospects, how quickly we show them the capability, that really helps us to win the deals, right? And when it comes to feature enhancement, how does it really integrate with the existing modules? We have, as I have shown you earlier, we have tens of modules, different modules that can be plugged and played. So how does it integrate with all of them? Or when it comes to product roadmap, how do we plan and how do we reuse the existing test cases and existing knowledge base? So those are the focus areas when we are looking at all those different aspects. So all of them are currently being addressed through autonomic, and we're pleased to say that we can delineate those functionality in a way that is more useful for us, and we can apply those to the relevant areas. Okay, so that is basically what I want to say about autonomic, and especially to show you how I am personally using it from the executive desk to see, okay, we are promising these things to the customers or to the prospects. So can I really deliver that, or does it fall into any danger, or does it need my intervention? So to see all that, I have dashboards showing me right away, okay, is it on track or is it not on track, or the whatever that I'm supposed to see, is it there, or else if not, I can dig deeper and then I can see for each project or for each I can dig even deeper from here. But I just want to bring your focus here, because every project or will let you know to what extent it is complete, and how was it before, how is it now, and then where are we going. So that is the kind of insight or the intelligence that I rely upon day to day to make decisions, and to talk to the customers and prospects and say, hey, yes, we're on track or we are not on track. That is how we are using autonomic. And with that, I would let Raj take over, and
Yeah.
maybe Raj can show you an example of how deeply we are using it.
Thank you, Sriram. So, Sriram, just for the from an audience, for general understanding of all the everybody in the audience, quick
Hmm.
question about Virima. So, if I understood correctly, Virima is able to um, detect any um, any service infrastructure, anything I'm running, whether within the four walls or behind the firewall, or even in the public domain. If I have a public cloud or a private cloud setup, Virima can just go magically discover all of those things, bring
Mhm.
the information back, and then let me first, it is data, provide me data about everything I have as an enterprise, and then manage it from there. Is that, in a nutshell, could I describe it that way?
Yes. Not only that we discover, but also we map it for you. So that is our biggest differentiating factor.
Right.
Discovery
Y-
may be done by many point tools, but mapping cannot be done so easily. So that is where
Right. Right.
VIRIMA comes into the picture.
Right. So you map it and then you let people manage it. So there are
That,
the three things. There's discovery, mapping, and managing. All of those three things are accomplished by Virima.
that is correct. Yes.
Okay. So that means you're giving your users some sort of a product that they can go in and extract information and do something with it. And so there is a lot of UI plus, because you have to do discovery and you continuously keep discovering because things change. So that means you also have a good set of APIs. It's a blend of API, UI. In other words, your application that you Virima is a very complex application with a lot of is a hybrid application with both UI and API involved in it, right?
Yes, that is correct. And even the UI has many aspects to it, not just the discovery. We have ITSM and IT asset management areas. Each of
Right.
the areas have multiple modules themselves.
Yes.
And that also involves both cloud, on-prem, and hybrid infrastructure. So
Right.
Virima spans in all areas of infrastructure domain, if you will.
Got it. And who would within an organization, who is the typical user of Virima technologies? Is it usually IT ops team or other than IT ops?
Yes, definitely IT ops team, and also the executive team to know, for example, what is my infrastructure footprint, and how do I plan for the budget for the coming year in
Mm,
terms of how many infrastructure items do I need to replace. For example, I'm going for an upgrade of the machines. I'm say basically getting rid of Windows 7 and going to Windows 10. That's an old example, but that is a relevant example. So how many machines do I need to order? So what does that add to my budget? So starting with the C-level executives, all the way to IT operations management, IT service management folks can use Virima.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Let me share my screen. I would like to just give you a quick orientation to the product, and then we will jump into a specific VIRIMA case. So just like the last screen that SreeRam was showing us, this is these are the list of projects. On SreeRam's screen, he had all the VIRIMA projects that he cared most about. So, and here is another similar example, right? These are the ones I care most about, so they're here. And what we have done is the way we have designed the product is we have mapped all testing activities into three phases. There is a planning phase, an execution phase, and analysis phase. In the planning phase, you can create test case, and test case is nothing but a collection of test steps. And you can also create test suites. Earlier in the previous session, I showed you how we can create test case. Now I'm going to show you how we can create a test suite. And then we will also look at projects. See, these are the various projects, each one targeted at a particular application under test. So in this case, you can see this is to test Salesforce, and in this is to test a custom application, John Deere store. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get into this particular project, and I want to create a new test suite. So I will show you an existing test suite. I just click on the suites button, and you can see here, these are the three test suites. And this particular test suite has 7 test scenarios under it. You see, this is the test scenario. And you can actually, you can actually create a new test suite by just clicking on this button here. And you can create a new test suite and grab whatever test cases you want and put them into it, right? So, but let us go take a look at this test suite. So I have an ability to control how the test, let me take a step back. Why is test suite important? When SreeRam and his team are executing an end-to-end test, that means they are covering their entire application suite. And it doesn't have to be just their application. They're also integrated with many other applications. So they want to do an end-to-end test. That's when they will go create a test suite and create a set of test cases that pass on information from one to the other. It is like a value chain, right? So this value chain of test cases create a test suite and gives you the effect of executing an entire test across an entire test scenario across multiple applications. That is the purpose of a test suite. Now, what I can do with this is a lot of interesting things. So first, I can go ahead and create a certain workflow related to a test suite. First thing I want to show you is here is the name and information. And if I want a report to be sent to me automatically at the conclusion of the execution of this test case, whether it fails or succeeds, it doesn't matter, it will send me a report. All I have to do is put my email address. See here, where I'm just putting my email address, and boom. Now, every time this suite is executed, I will get an email. It doesn't have to be an internal email. I can provide any email here and it will send it. And here are, let me go back here. So the next thing is the test cases. So here is a collection of test cases I can add, modify to this test suite. And then finally, I can arrange my test cases. So let us say that I want to run this August 4th test 1-1 before anything else. I can just drag and drop it. I can change the order because sometimes in a test suite, order is very important. So you could do it that way. And then finally, the most important thing is post-action. What we mean by this is, so let us say that, like SreeRam showed, he has 30 different projects and 30 different people working on multiple projects. But SreeRam cares about a certain sequence of test suite execution. So in other words, what I mean by that is, After this particular test suite is completely executed, they want to execute another test suite, which is related to release 6.1. And then from that project, he wants to execute a particular validation test suite. And then he wants to execute it only when all fail, all success, always are partial. Let us speak partial. And then here I can say 2 minutes after the first suite is done, because I just want to run a batch job or whatever I need to do. So I give it 2 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour, 2 hours, it doesn't matter. And then go execute this, right? And then if you want to add more, you could continue to repeat the same process. And you can essentially, we give you the ability to not only test your one scenario, but multiple scenarios, one after the other in a sequence. We call this as test suite workflow, and you can create that. Very powerful capability. And this is how we can cover. There were several questions about, can we do end-to-end testing? Absolutely. That's how you do end-to-end testing. Also, now having shown you all that, let's take a quick look at VIRIMA Technologies demo, and certainly we can answer questions. So this is a scenario that SreeRam's team has created. This is about knowledge management. It is about successfully saving and getting a document, a knowledge document item from the library and saving it for yourself, right? You basically think of it as checking it out. So that is what we are doing here. We are verifying chat is on the page. These verifications are things to make sure the application is in the right shape and the right frame, right? So first you run you log in, and then you don't have to repeat this. This is we call it a reusable component. So this is a login. You log into it, application, and then you verify something is on the page. It could be anything. It could be not just one item. By the way, you can also variabilize this. This is the concept of a variable in Autonomic, where anything you can pass as a variable, and we know what to deal with it. So if you wanted to verify 5 items on the page, you could just variabilize and run through all of them. And then we are clicking through certain things, navigating through the application, and again, verifying knowledge records are on the screen, as select actions on the screen. And then I'm going to show you some complexities here. There is one page where VIRIMA has 30 similar objects. How do you find the object you care about and click it? You just give it a simple reference. In this case, you give it a qualifier saying, click on the 6th grade X detail, and it will exactly click on that, find the 6th one, and then select that. And then you can also use other methods. So for example, in this case, you see here, click on knowledge records after dashboards. So you don't have to necessarily index it with the exact number. You could also reference it, which is closest object. And we understand the entire layout of the page. So we have a complete orientation of the page. You can say left, right, top, bottom, closest to, after. All those things have very specific meaning to us, okay? Meaning to Autonomic. So that's what happens. So this is the intent that his team has created. And what we're going to do now is we're going to import this intent. You see here, I'm in the VIRIMA technology instance, where I'm actually going to import this particular test case. And then from there, within minutes, a script is generated and executed. Okay, so here I'm going in and importing. See, this is where I'm bringing in the test case, and that's it. That's all I have to do. And now you will see the test starts processing, and it is going through the login formalities. And once the login is complete, you can see We are in VIRIMA. You see, user ID password is already entered, and you can now it's going through and is verifying chat is on the page, um, and then clicking on the particular object that they're referencing there. And now, okay, let's go back there for a second. What I wanted to show you was how the message pops up. You see here, it is showing you that two elements are found and the first is used. Why did we choose to use the first? Because Autonomic understands the entire page. It knows however many elements are, it already counts them. But because the test step says, click on the first, the test step says, click on the first ITSM. That's why it selected the first one. Okay, so that's what you see here. Click on the first ITSM, and that's why it selected the first one, even though there are multiple elements on that page. See, they clicked on that one. Okay, so there is a lot of intelligence built into that capability. So and then we keep going, and here the one interesting one is, you see, this is the one that is very, very interesting. Click on first knowledge records after dashboards. Right. So if you really look at it, our application understands. You see here, you can see, I hope you can see this. Dashboard is just about knowledge records, right? So it knows, because there could be multiple knowledge records anywhere in this page, but it knows, click on the first knowledge record after dashboard. So just like a human can understand, our system can understand that and then process that. So all this is done, and then in a few minutes, the particular item is selected. And here is a good example of how we select through complex maze of objects, right? Here, there are 30 similar objects for the 6th grade X detail page. You see here, there are 30 similar objects, but 6th is used. So you can give us an index reference, and that's exactly the one we pick. So you can see this is VIRIMA is a complex application with because it has to handle so many things, and this is how we can make their testing easy, right? So you see, we can search and just provide a variable, and that is how a search the variable, because you can change the kinds of items you test. You search, right? So you can keep on changing the items you search for, and then that's what is happening here, right? So we'll do that, and then finally, you see, it is entering that value in that search box, and it finds, you see, it found the appropriate items there, and then it is selecting one, and then finally it is subscribing, it is saving, and once it saves it, you're subscribed to that knowledge item successfully. That is the message we want to receive, because that's when we know the test was successfully completed. See, as soon as you click on save, you don't know whether the next step or the next screen that shows up is the right screen. So that's why we want to validate and say, subscribe to knowledge successfully. See, in this case, the user subscribed to knowledge successfully, and that highlighted that. If it was not here for whatever reason, because code changed and somebody made a mistake, then it would fail and it would stop there. So this is how we are enabling companies like VIRIMA test their complex applications. And what you saw there was an application with lots and lots of information, right? Lots of objects, lots of complex objects, lots of search, and lots of click and verify, those kinds of things. And that's how it can be done. So now, are there any, well, there are a couple of other things I would like to point out here. One is, let us go into test data is very important, right? So what we have done is we have created a test data tab in our core framework where you can actually create and access test data. So this is where the test data files get stored, are created. So when you are actually navigating an application and creating a test data file, or entering information, you would capture that and save it as a test data file. You can see here, this is the test data file with the first row as the label, the second row as the value. So what we can do is we can edit this right there. So I can just click it and I can go in, and I don't want it, annual revenue is more like 500 million. I can edit that right there. 500 million and update it. And from now on, the test will run with that data. Okay, so simple things. You can also download it right here, right there. You can download it and make changes and upload it again. So there are lots of things that is possible. Also, one thing you can do is you can map. You see here, right now, this particular test data file is mapped to this particular test case. But what if you wanted to map it to this test case as well, or this test case? You could easily do that. So what that means is one data file can be shared across multiple test cases, and this gives you a certain ability to simplify your test data and test case mapping. So that is another way you can bind it to multiple test cases. So these are some of the things. One last thing I wanted to show you was in terms of execution. Any of our scripts can be executed in any browser OS combination, whatever you want. This is a test instance I'm showing you, and that is why I have a very limited set. But you can execute on any browser OS combination you choose, and we can execute that. That's one thing. And the other thing also I want to show you is we have an ability to execute concurrently. So what I mean by that is if I have a test suite like this one here, I can say, I want to go ahead and execute this particular test suite, this one here, in concurrently. You see here, I can execute serially or parallelly. What that means is it will take every single test case and run it on its own instance, and you can execute this very quickly. You can also mention browser OS combinations here, and you can select whatever browser OS combinations you want, and either you can run them serially or in concurrent. Okay, so these are some of the additional capabilities that we talk about. And finally, this is the dashboard that SreeRam was talking about. So here you have all these projects, test suites, test cases, reporting capabilities, and so on. So that in active users, active projects. One thing I would like to share about the dashboards is we are collecting, because this is an AI SaaS platform, we have all kinds of data captured in it. We don't surface everything, but if there is a specific need one of the customers have, we can easily surface that information. Okay, so just to let you know, there is a capability. So think of it as soon as you log in, somebody like a CTO like SreeRam, he gets this view, but he wants to double click on a particular project, he can do it and say, I want to give a project view, and here he is in a project view, and he can get immediately, he can look at things like what is the total number of test cases, test suites, when it was modified, and what is the quality trend on this test suite. All of this information is available at your fingertips. That, in a nutshell, is how the product is put together and how VIRIMA uses the product. So now we can turn to Q&A.
We have two attendees asking questions along similar lines. I'm going to present both of those to you both and see what your thoughts are. First, we have someone asking, is the application still very fast as they see it in the demo when the application under test is itself slow, as in if the page loading itself takes time? And similarly, how does the tool take care of slow loading pages or elements that get loaded after a certain lag? Raj, if you could speak to that from a technical side, and SreeRam, if you have experience with anything like this at VIRIMA.
Right. So VIRIMA is one of those lucky companies that everything is fast because they are not like an Oracle or a Salesforce, which is massive applications. When you deal with massive ERP applications, they all SAP especially, it's very slow. I sympathize with the questionnaire because there are lots of applications in this world that are slow. And you have to match the speed of that target application because unless you match that speed, automation will fail. So we have several techniques. One technique is there is some simple techniques and there are some intelligent techniques. So let me share the whole spectrum with you. The simple technique is just to put a wait. You can wait for X number of static seconds. We don't like that. We do not recommend that. The smart approach, intelligent approach, is to wait on an event. There has to be an event, for lazy loading, because there are a lot of pages that lazy load. And also there are a lot of pages that there is a background database processing that's going on. So they just gone fishing for like 60 seconds and then come back, right? So when that happens, you have to adjust your automation so that you match the speed of the target application. So the way to do that is wait for an event. An event could be as simple as a response coming back, finally a page getting loaded, or a last field being loaded, or even for one customer we had to do where the spinning wheel stopped. But unfortunately, the spinning wheel doesn't stop always because it stops and then starts after some time and then goes on spinning. So but for that also we have a design. So my recommendation, waiting on an event is the right approach. And we have capability to do that.
SreeRam, anything that you'd like to add from your experience on that question?
So our application is definitely much faster compared to SAP, because we do integrate with those applications. And we had similar challenges because if you remember Raj talking about API, we have hundreds of integrations that we carry out because CMDB is a master source of data, and we used to get data from all other sources, right? So when we deal with those applications that do not give us the data in proper manner, obviously, as he pointed out, waiting on an event is much intelligent, and it is the right approach, I would believe, than waiting for certain number of seconds. So I would concur with Raj, and that is the best way to go.
Raj, SreeRam, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience today?
One thing I would like to say is, SreeRam, your presentation was fabulous. I really want to appreciate and thank you for your time. I know how busy you are, and your organization is growing like gangbusters. We wish you best of luck with the growth, and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Raj. Definitely, Autonomic is certainly part of our success story. So we would look forward for a long-term relationship, because as our application grows, our roadmap is pretty big too. We're not stopping here. Yes. So I would look forward for having great relationship with you in long term. Thank you. Thank you, Raj. Thank you, Susie.
Wonderful. Thank you both.